In my last episode on Zero to Gold Cap, I made a comment about that I didn't want to disenchant my way all the way to 10 million gold, as that would just be boring. And I got loads of comments basically asking how viable this was. So what I thought I'd have a look at, because a lot of you guys have been asking for sort of some simpler gold making stuff as well, is I would have a look at disenchanting today. Now I did fairly recently do a video that involved a disenchanting shuffle as part of it, so there is going to be some overlap here, but this is looking things from a simpler perspective. Now we have one shuffle for dust, one for crystals, and one for shards. Which is the best will depend on the prices of everything, of course, but personally, as I was doing this testing, I tended to find the crystal shuffle was the best as far as profit was concerned, but there are advantages and disadvantages to sort of each of these individual shuffles. So the Dark Moon deck shuffle then, so the most important part of this shuffle is to be picking up the cheapest possible decks, basically. So we have 4 different Dark Moon decks in the War Within, and to make each of the decks, you need sort of 8 separate cards, combine them into a deck, and then that is what you're going to disenchant. So what you are going to do is you are going to buy the cards from the auction house, put the deck together yourself, and then disenchant it, because it is significantly cheaper than buying the decks directly from the auction house. Now, what you need to do is you need to check what the price is going to be on each of the 4 decks to find out which one's going to be cheapest, and then you're going to buy all the cards to make all the decks for that particular one. So you need to go through each of the decks for the War Within, add up the price of all the cards, and see which is the cheapest of them to make. Then you're going to buy the cards, and then basically you're just going to sort of click on them, put them all together into decks, and then you're just going to disenchant all those decks. And basically that is what the crystal shuffle is in the War Within. If you're struggling to find these, then if you just type Dark Moon into the search bar on the auction house, filter by current expansion only, and you'll see the 4 Dark Moon decks there. And then you can see sort of the name of the Dark Moon deck. Then if you search for the individual name of the deck, and then you'll find all the individual cards you need to make that deck. And like I said, from there, you're going to add all the prices together to see how much the deck's going to cost you to make. Now, you'd think it'd be more time consuming because you have sort of the craft bar to put all these Dark Moon decks together. But to be fair, it doesn't take that much longer than just buying them off the auction house anyway. And it is a lot less fiddly because you can just keybind one of the cards, just drag it into just drag it into your number 1 and just sit there pressing number 1, and that'll put all your decks together rather than sort of clicking through them, messing about like that. And like I said, once we've put all our Dark Moon decks together, then we're just going to spam disenchant away. Now, a few of you have asked about the disenchant macro that I use. If you want to keybind this, then it's just a macro of just cast, disenchant, and then /use, and then you can shift click the item that you're trying to disenchant. And if you can then sort of like drag that into whatever keybind you want to, and then you can use that just to 1 button disenchant to whichever keybind you want, if that's helpful to you rather than clicking. And one of the guys on the Discord even keybound it and was using a controller to make it even easier on himself. So, you know, if that's your thing, then you can do that too. So that macro was actually listed in the gold making resources section on the gold making community Discord, along with a load of add-ons and websites that can help you with your gold making. Obviously, a lot of gold making ideas thrown around on the Discord as well. So if you're interested in joining that, it's all free, obviously, etc. and all that, then the link for that is all in the description below. Now, the advantage of this Dark Moon deck disenchanting shuffle is that you don't really need any other professions to support it as a disenchanting shuffle, which just makes it easier to set up than sort of all the other disenchanting shuffles that are out there. And like I said, I found myself making quite good gold on this at times, especially compared to the other ones. Just seem to be able to have sort of a higher top end than the other disenchanting shuffles. But also at times I found the decks could get quite expensive. The cards to make the decks got quite expensive to a point where there was barely any profit in it as well. So once again, this is a thing where it's really useful to know how profitable it is going to be before you start. And if you have a crafting sheet that does all this for you, then obviously that's what you really need before you do these sorts of shuffles. Now, a few of you have asked for a video about making crafting sheets and stuff like that. Because obviously my one is not very widely circulated. But if you want that, if you let me know in the comments below, and I might consider doing a video about sort of making your own crafting sheets and stuff like that. So the next two shuffles we're going to be talking about are the ones that I talked about in the exquisite weave cloth bolt shuffle video. And for these, we need a tailor that's going to craft stuff that we are going to disenchant. So we are crafting either Pioneer's cloth braces for the shard shuffle or the Weaver cloth chef's hat if we're going to do the dust shuffle. Now, the tailoring crafter needs to have as much resourcefulness as possible to make it so these are as cheap as possible to craft. So obviously this means they need the upgraded profession gear with a resourcefulness enchant. That assumes that you are buying stuff off the auction house. So you're buying the bolts or whatever to craft this stuff directly from the auction house. Now, it is better on the profit margins to craft the bolts yourself if you have a BIS tailoring crafter when it comes to unraveling and crafting bolts. But that is quite a high bar for a lot of people at the moment, like I talked about in the exquisite weaver cloth bolt video. So I'm not going to cover it too much here. If you do want to see that, then I will link the exquisite weaver cloth bolt video at the end of this one, but I don't want to overbloat this video with something that's most people that are watching this probably aren't going to do. But like I said, it will increase your profit margins a bit more. Now, I've made a lot of gold from both of these shuffles as well, but just like with the other Dark Moon deck Disenchanting shuffle, you need to know the profit margins before you start. And this is basically what we're using those crafting sheets for, and it's difficult because you don't know what the profit margins are before you've started. Or it might even be a loss, as sometimes it is simulated for a loss for certain disenchanting shuffles. So then not only have you wasted your time, but you've lost gold as well. So it's very difficult to do without having some sort of resource as to know what the approximate outcome of this is going to be. But like I said, you can do this yourself. I can do a video going into it a bit more, but the general idea is you're just going to disenchant a load of stuff, see what comes out. From there, you can sort of have an average, and then you know roughly what it's going to be going forward. But you do need to sort of invest a lot of gold and time into getting that data to begin with. And sometimes you can lose quite a lot of gold in the process of doing that. But like I said, we'll talk about making crafting sheets maybe in another future video. Now, as far as your enchanting knowledge is concerned, for your disenchanter, you're basically aiming for 145 profession skill. So you're going to get 100 from having your profession skill maxed out. You're going to get 40 from having maxed out profession gear. Your profession gear doesn't have to be max rank because you only care about the enchanting level. So you could even have sort of rank 1, but as long as it's blue and you've got the plus 11 or you've got the plus 18 on it, then you're fine from there. From the perspective of disenchanting, at least anyway, it's not going to work so well for other stuff in enchanting. So the final 5 points that I really think that you need to be doing this is the Blood Elf ratio that's going to give you 5 more enchanting skill. Now, I know it only makes sort of a reasonably small difference, but it does make a difference on the testing that I've been doing. What it does, it just bumps some of that rank 1 stuff up to rank 2 and some of the rank 2 stuff up to rank 3. So it does really affect profit margins. And when it comes to having a disenchanter, it's so easy to set up anything with enchanting because you just get such a ridiculous amount of catch-up knowledge from it. Then you can basically just chuck this on any Blood Elf on your account and it can be set up quite quickly. And the profession gear itself isn't particularly expensive either. So knowledge points wise, you just need 30 points into designated disenchanter. And then you have the rare, uncommon, and epic nodes, and you're just going to max out whichever of these you need. So actual knowledge-wise, you don't need a lot. You just need a lot of art and acuity to basically just to get those rare profession gear and stuff like that to get the most plus skill. But I think the biggest thing here is the Blood Elf ratio, because I think that's the thing that's probably making for me anyway, it was making quite a bit of difference on how much gold, and especially if it's something you're going to do a lot, then it probably is definitely worth having something set up on that particular character. So the actual setup of a disenchanter, so if you don't need that much knowledge, enchanting knowledge is really, really easy to get because it's really easy to get the shimmering dust catch-up knowledge. Getting the 100 profession skill can cost you a bit of gold. Getting the rare or stroke epic profession gear to get as much plus skill as possible, that can cost you a little bit of gold. But it's not particularly expensive, so this is quite easy to set up. And if you're going to buy the bolts off the auction house, then setting up the tailor is not particularly expensive either. It's only if you go crafting your own bolts, and that's, like I said, that's going to increase your profit margins even more. But it's only if you go that far that you sort of need quite a bit more investment in that situation. It's one of those situations where you really need to know what the result is going to be before you've done it. But like I said, we'll probably follow this up with a crafting sheet video. I didn't want to put it into this video because that's a video for itself, because it's not just about disenchanting, it's about everything basically. So like I said, if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.